G'day, battlers, and today we are jumping in for the Fighting Cup remix, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's a little bit of an RPS one, but we'll see how it does go anyway. Now, the Fighting Cup, if you aren't familiar, is just all fighting types in the Great League, with a ban on Psychic type Pokemon like Medicham, just because they'd be a little bit too overpowered in this format. There are a couple of extra bans though, and that is the remix part of it, taking out some of the big heavy hitters from the last time Fighting Cup was around. So that is Hakamo'o, Komo'o, Skorupi, Buzzwole, and Sneasler. Now, Skorupi had to be banned because it was so oppressive with its poison bug typing, but luckily Niantic have come in and removed it this time. But we also have bans on Hakamo'o and Komo'o, so because there was a really oppressive double dragon line that's really just unresisted in the fighting type meta. And then last time there was also Buzzwole and Sneasler that really just highlighted some accessibility issues. But you know, it's a little better now because Buzzwole is sort of like was just distributed in that Ultra Beast raid event, but regardless, still a little bit of accessibility issues, especially around Sneasler. But speaking of accessibility, what's accessible is the Discord link in the description down below. Brand new PvP Steve Discord. Woo woo. I'm just gonna bring the infographic up for the Fighting Cup remix, and bada bing bada this one. There we go. For the thumbnail. And okay, so we've got, as I said, it's pretty RPS, but we have three main groups here on the graphic, and there are a couple of other Pokemon that I'll mention at the end that are usable in this cup as well. So, well, usable, may have a meaningful effect on the cup, I should say. Now, in the top, we have the meta-defining Pokemon, and that is Toxicroak. We also have Hisui and Sneasel in small, and these are the fighting poison types. Poison's subtyping gives them the ability to resist fighting damage coming in, and Toxicroak is really just able to get those mud bombs spamming out and do a lot of damage, and is really why it is just the master Pokemon in this meta. Hisui and Sneasel basically is just a worse Toxicroak. It just doesn't perform as well. It doesn't stand up very well against the core meta in the Fighting Cup. It does really well, like it's pretty high on the PvPoke rankings, but that's mostly because it does really well against everything not on this graphic. Like it can just clean house on everything else, but against the core meta, it's not as strong. Toxicroak is just a better version of the fighting poison type, but you can still run Hisui and Sneasel, even in like an ABB line with a double fighting poison, and you'll still do pretty okay. It's definitely a usable Pokemon. Now, to counter this way, in the bottom left, to counter the oppressive Toxicroak, we have the main Pokemon, Throw. Now, Throw is not a Pokemon you see in many Pokemon Go metas, but the reason it gets its way into this cup, or this being good, is because it has access to Zen Headbutt, which is quite possibly the only time a Pokemon has ever been glad that it has access to Zen Headbutt. But essentially, Zen Headbutt, I think, is able to take out Toxicroak in just 8 Zen Headbutts, because Toxicroak is so weak to Psychic, with it being fighting and poison. So it really just goes down quick. You can just farm all the way down, and then Throw will have a bunch of energy to throw at the next Pokemon coming in. So that is sort of why Throw is the sort of big meat and potatoes of this rock, paper, scissors. And then also flanked by 2 other Pokemon. Actually, Toxicroak on the PvPoke rankings only has 3 Pokemon in the like key losses section, which I don't think I've ever seen not full. So these are the 3. It's Throw, Galarian Farfetch, and Shadow Poliwrath. And it has to be Shadow Poliwrath because regular Poliwrath can't do it. But both Shadow Poliwrath and Galarian Farfetch'd have to bait and then land the big nuke move to be able to take it out. I mean, in Poliwrath's case, the nuke move is Scald, but you have to like bait either a Parrot Punch or an Ice Punch and then land the Scald to be able to take Toxicroak out. So it's not as clear cut, whereas Throw is like a really hard counter. So, you know, there are other options, is sort of just what I'm trying to point out there. You don't have to run the pure RPS. Poliwrath is actually a pretty good Pokemon up against a lot of the other meta as well. So still something to keep in mind. And then your sort of bodyguards for Toxicroak in the bottom right. So the things that beat the Toxicroak counters but generally lose to Toxicroak. We have the just heavy fighting damage that is basically able to overcome Throw, and that is Shadow Machamp. Shadow Machamp able to do big counter damage and get a lot of damage off, and that's really all it's trying to do here. It is just like, you wouldn't think that fighting types would be doing fighting type damage to each other to sort of win out here. Like, you know, Toxicroak's got Mud Bombs and Throw's got Zen Headbutt, but Machamp is really just powering through, and that's what it does, and it beats Throw. So there you go. There are some other options. So Galarian Zapdos and Sirfetch'd, they both have access to Brave Bird, which are going to be like super good against the meta, as long as you can land them, because they're both Neither of them are super tanky Pokemon. I mean, if you're even lucky to have a Galarian Zapdos. I do have one, but it's not in Great League, so rip me. Not that you really need it, you just run Machamp. But they have access to Brave Bird, which is definitely a pretty strong move if you can land it. But that is the sort of, I guess there's dynamics there. If you can get shields earlier in the matchup, you leave your Brave Bird user as your sort of sweeper, and then you land your Brave Bird and basically take out whatever is on the field, pretty much whatever it is. It's not going to last a Brave Bird. So yeah, really simply, that is the core meta. There are a couple of other picks, especially in that bottom right group. So there's things like a Primeape that have some play, especially because they have pretty spammy Ice Punches. And I mean, you don't want to run Night Slash in a Fighting Cup meta because everything resists it. I don't know that there's a single Pokemon in the meta that doesn't take resisted damage from. I'm sure there is. Let me know in the comments which Pokemon in the Fighting Cup meta doesn't resist Night Slash. But yeah, you're probably not going to run that. You're probably going to run like Ice Punch Close Combat, and then use Close Combat as that big damaging move like Machamp to take out all of the other Pokemon. There's also things like Blaziken, also has access to Brave Bird, also really squishy. Not as good up against Poliwrath, just because Scald is going to just demolish it. So that's sort of why it's less desirable. There's also things like Combusken that have access to Peck, if you really want to go that way. Sort of similar to Throw in it being a fast move down something, and then you'll have energy to throw onto the next Pokemon to try and win the switch advantage, try to win that game of RPS. But with all that said, that's pretty much all I want to say about the Fighting Cup remix. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Don't forget to join the Patreon as well. First link down in the description down below. And of course, thank you to my patrons and YouTube members, because they are lovely human beings. And wish me luck for Brisbane, because it is only in a couple days, and gosh, I don't know what is going on in this new Great League meta. I am in trouble. Bye.